Why are Calatheas so finicky? It's not fair. They're so beautiful, but they are such a pain to keep alive. Basically what I'm trying to say is I hope you're not watching this video because you're trying to keep your Calathea alive. I hope that you're here because you're thinking about buying one and are kind of interested in how it works. Today, we're going to be covering one of the most gorgeous Calatheas around, the Calathea Roseopicta, also known as the Rose Calathea and Calathea Jungle Rose. So fancy. Rosie's got a bit of a special origination. Calatheas originate from tropical climates in the Americas, and they typically live under the canopy of the rainforest. However, Calathea Rosy is made by science. Well, I guess everything is made by science, technically. Anyways, Calathea Roseopicta was patented in 1993 by Anne E. Lamb. So this was a cultivated hybrid Frankenstein monster beauty. And little fun facts that I learned in my research. One, Calatheas are known to be air cleaners, so they're really good for getting toxins and all of the gross kind of bad stuff out of the air. And I'm just gonna tell you this. I can't vouch for it. I'm just gonna tell you what I learned on the internet. And no one lies on the internet, so it has to be true, right? Allegedly, the phrase turn over a new leaf comes from Calatheas, because if you've heard of prayer plants, those are Calatheas too, and at night they fold up their leaves, like putting your hands into prayer mode. Prayer mode? So somehow that translates into turn over a new leaf, which then becomes an idiom in the English language. I just work here. I don't know. Roseopicta actually has a couple of types of variations. One of them is dotty, which is actually a Roseopicta. They have this beautiful look to them where instead of this traditional mauve and green coloring, they have a more solid green leaf with this really awesome pink purple feathering through them. There's also the medallion, which is like the dotty, except it's green with whitish, maybe like a pale yellow feathering in it. And then there's the rosy, which is pink. And according to ASPCA, these are safe for cats, dogs, and horses. Like I said before, the coloring of the rosy variety is a traditionally solid pink or mauve center with a dark green trim around it. And if your Calathea Rosy is super happy, you will see flowers on it. It will flower pink, purple, or even dark green flowers. And like all Calatheas, despite mine being very wee, your Calathea can grow up to 4 feet. So this can be a very good centerpiece for your collection. Now let's talk about care. Should I keep holding this the whole time? I'll hold it until my arms get tired. All right, let me just start off with, despite them being so prevalent in the houseplant world and having so many varieties, Calatheas are known prima donnas. So if you're starting out, this is probably not the first houseplant you should get. You can try. Good luck. That's the best I can offer you. That said, light requirements for the Calathea Roseopicta. Best light, medium to indirect. You don't want this in front of a window unless you have blinds or curtains or some sort of filtration, because it can burn its leaves very easily. The part that people mess up the most with Calatheas is its water requirements. Remember, this is a rainforest plant. It grows in tropical climates under the canopy. Consequently, Calatheas are used to being in somewhat soggy, moist soil. But there's a balance here because you don't want the soil to get so watery that your Calathea develops root rot. It is a balancing act that is a pain in the butt. My best recommendation is water it when the top level of soil is dry to the touch. In terms of soil requirements, you can hear my dog walking around. That's Jimmy Bagels. The Calathea Rosy needs again, a kind of balancing act. It needs well-draining soil, but soil that can hold moisture too. So you're gonna wanna look for a soil blend that has good moisture retention. And for fertilizer requirements, your best bet is to fertilize it every month during spring or summer when that is its big grow season. You're gonna wanna make sure that the fertilizer that you use is a nitrogen-rich blend. I like Schultz all-purpose fertilizer, but whatever you got available that has a good nitrogen blend in it, this will be happy. Temperature requirements, again, we're talking about a tropical plant that lives in the rainforest. Anywhere from 64 to 73 degrees Fahrenheit, 18 to 23 degrees Celsius is the best for it. Don't put it anywhere where it gets lower than 59 degrees Fahrenheit or 15 degrees Celsius. That is too cold for it and it can die very quickly. The biggest problem next to water that people have with this is humidity. It needs a lot of humidity, a lot, 50% or more in the air. So you can mist it, although you're misting, sometimes that works, sometimes it doesn't. I find it usually doesn't. Your best bet is to put it on a shallow dish that has some gravel or rocks under it and keep that gravel moist. That will help raise the humidity levels around the plant and make it happier. If you want to propagate this, the easiest way to do that is through division. I do not have multiple plants in here, so I can't show you that, but in my White Fusion Calathea video, so I can't do this, sorry guys. So you see, like, here's the plant, and you can see it's kind of divided right here and right here. You can see where there are two distinct plants, and if I wanted to propagate that, I would pull up the bulb that has the two plants and split it, and that's how you propagate it. In terms of repotting, Calatheas, they don't like to be root bound, but they like to get close to that edge where they are root bound. And you want to let it grow to the point where you're like, okay, this is definitely time to repot. Your best time to do that is early spring, right before the growing season starts, but don't repot it too often. Give it a couple of years in each pot to let it chill, because you don't want to introduce too much transplant shock. That is an easy killer for a perceived plant like a Calathea. Now let's talk about problems. Calatheas, especially the Roseopicta, are super sexy to pests. Spider mites, scale, gnats, and mealybugs. If you notice bugs in your Calathea Roseopicta, act as quickly as possible. Now, in terms of what to do, different bugs require different methods, so I'll cover that in another video. And when it's ready, I'll link it here, where we'll dive into all of the different ways that you can kill the creepy crawlies that are living in your plants. If you ever notice there are crispy edges around your Calathea, that typically means you're not giving it good water. Houseplants don't have the ability to get rid of bad nutrients or the things that we typically have in our tap water. Since they can't reject it, what they'll usually do is push that crap out into the furthest edges of the plant as possible. Consequently, those parts get sacrificed. And so if you're starting to see crispy edges, brown, kind of gross, that most likely means the water quality is not great. I love to use a mixture of aquarium water and rainwater, but if you've just got rainwater or distilled water, those work just as well. I think this guy is probably 2 years, at least 2 years old, and that's a tiny plant, right, for a 2-year-old. If yours is like mine, and it won't grow, you should probably check its fertilizer and make sure that you're using a nitrogen-rich one. This guy actually didn't have a very good upbringing when I first got him. I got him as a little starter plant, and it required a lot of love and affection, and it has only just now begun to do really well. So that's why I think mine hasn't flourished as much. Maybe it's just happy to be a little baby plant. I'd be happy with that. It's pretty. I like it. But if yours isn't growing and you want it to, check your fertilizer. Make sure it's nitrogen rich. If your Roseopicta doesn't really have vibrant colors, check your light levels. Most likely it's getting too much light. And if you notice brown spots or crispy spots, that is definitely a sign it's getting way too much light and it's too harsh for it. So the plant is sort of holding back. You also want to make sure that it doesn't have any obstructions for it to get access to its light. So make sure you're wiping the dust off the leaves. That always tends to come on Calatheas. Usually about once a month is a good thing. Just use a moist paper towel and just wipe it off. I have a whole video that talks about the easy ways that you can keep your plants alive. That goes into it, and it's right here. If the leaves begin to wilt off your Calathea, that's a more complicated question. It typically means it's being underwatered and doesn't have enough strength to raise the leaves. But paradoxically, and this is why Calatheas are prima donnas, it could also mean it has too much water. So inspect the soil and see if it is super soaked or really dry. The way to solve this is either you water it from the bottom so that the roots have quick access to the water, or repot it in fresh soil that's not waterlogged. If your Calathea begins to start curling its leaves inward, that is a sign that it does not have access to enough water. So it's either being underwatered or there's not enough humidity around. So either change its water routine so that it gets more water, or add more humidity around it. And lastly, if your Roseopicta starts developing yellow leaves, like wilting, there's a couple of explanations why, but the main reason, time and time and again, is overwatering. So that's it. That is the Calathea Roseopicta. I like it better over here with the blue, right? That looks way better. That looks way more striking, except I have all my plants over here, so you can't see. Stop it, Megan. Now, if you want to go into even more fun Calatheas, check out this video where I do a deep dive on my white fusion Calathea, one of the most beautiful, and surprisingly, one of the ones I've been able to keep alive the best out of all the Calatheas. I'll see you over there.